Good morning from the little station on Commercial Street in Atchison, Kansas.
Good morning.
It's Monday, August 10th, 2026. And, we've got the coffee poured. The street outside is it's just starting to wake up.
Yeah, it's very quiet out there right now.
It really is. And we are so glad that you're sitting at the table with us today, joining us for a new week. And, well, if you walk up the hill to the college campus right now, you get that exact same feeling. It is completely, almost eerily silent.
Oh, yeah. August on a college campus it's a very strange kind of ghost town.
Right. But over the last 90 days, even in all that stillness, there has been this massive, unseen amount of labor. We're talking construction crews, electricians, archivists laying fiber optic cable and pouring concrete.
It's a huge expenditure of kinetic energy, just totally hidden behind closed doors.
Exactly. They are basically rewiring the town for an arrival that just hasn't happened yet. And that unseen preparation, that hidden labor, it actually perfectly mirrors the theme I want to trace through our conversation this morning.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Yeah, well, I want to frame this with today's gospel reading before we get into the actual physical blueprints of what's happening on campus. It's from the book of John, chapter 12. And in the Douay-Rheims translation, it reads, let me find it here. Okay. Amen. Amen, I say to you, unless the grain of wheat falling into the ground die, itself remaineth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit.
Yeah, we hear that metaphor so often, right, in a purely spiritual context.
Right, almost like a cliche at this point.
Yeah, and because of that, I think we completely lose the raw physical violence of what is actually being described there.
The violence of a seed.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about a grain of wheat dying, we aren't talking about this gentle, sort of peaceful fading away. If you look at the actual biological mechanism of germination, it's a catastrophic event for the seed.
Wait, catastrophic how?
Well, okay, so a grain of wheat has this hardened outer casing, the bran, and inside is the endosperm, which is essentially just a packed lunch of starch to keep the embryo alive, right?
Right, okay.
So the seed is completely self-contained. It's totally safe, and it's completely inert.
I mean, it could sit on a shelf in a jar for 1,000 years and remain perfectly intact.
Exactly. Intact, but also perfectly useless.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
For it to actually do what it is engineered to do, it has to be subjected to the earth, to the dark, freezing, wet ground. It undergoes this process, it's called imbibition, where it absorbs water until the internal pressure literally fractures the outer hull.
It breaks itself apart.
It totally shatters. The structure of the seed is permanently destroyed. The enzymes wake up, they consume all that stored starch, and the embryo pushes a root down and a shoot up. It's this total expenditure of stored energy.
A complete structural sacrifice.
Yes. And it all happens in the absolute dark.
So
no human eye can even observe it happening.
That biological reality, that unseen fracturing of the self to build a future structure, that's exactly what a college campus undergoes during the summer months.
It really is.
Because for the last 3 months, while all the dorms have been empty, there has been this intense, quiet labor going on behind the scenes at Benedictine. We have this massive stack of updates. I mean, look at this packet from the administration.
It's quite the manifesto.
It is. And if you just glance at it, it reads like a dry construction manifest, Lighting upgrades, department moves, knocking down some walls.
Just bullet points on a spreadsheet.
Right. But when you look at the engineering and honestly the sociology behind these changes, you realize they aren't just like renovating a couple of buildings. They are constructing the behavioral architecture of an entire community.
Oh, absolutely. They're building the physical spaces that will actually dictate how ideas take root.
Yes.
Because human behavior is always downstream of physical infrastructure. If you want a community to be intellectually curious or secure or cohesive, you can't just tell them to do that. You can't just put up a poster.
Right. You have to physically build the environment that forces those outcomes.
Exactly.
So let's look at the most significant piece of infrastructure on this list first. The completion of the new Moritz Library inside Douay Hall.
Which is a massive project.
Huge. The interior finish work is wrapping up right now. And the schedule here shows it will be open for move-in days, so that's August 24th and 25th. And then it kicks into full library hours starting on August 26th, ahead of the formal dedication for Family Weekend in September.
Which is coming up fast.
Very fast. But here's the thing. They didn't just build a room for books. The college has actually moved entire academic departments into this new facility.
Yeah, that stood out to me immediately.
Right. The history department, the political science department, and the Center for Constitutional Liberty have all moved their headquarters directly into the Moritz Library.
See, that is moving faculty offices into a library completely upends the modern philosophy of university design.
How so?
Well, for the last, I don't know, 70 years, university architecture has been totally obsessed with isolation. You build a specialized building for the library, right? And that acts as this quiet, isolated repository.
Just a storage unit for books.
Pretty much. And then, halfway across campus, you build a separate administrative block for the faculty offices. And then you build separate lecture halls. The assumption was always that compartmentalizing these functions makes them more efficient.
Right, like an assembly line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But functionally, what that does is it severs the connection between the archived knowledge and the people actually teaching it.
It turns the library into a vending machine.
A vending machine, that's exactly it.
You go in, you pull the book you need for your citation, and you immediately leave to go do the actual thinking somewhere else.
Which is just terrible pedagogy. But by structurally transplanting the history and political science departments into the library itself, they're returning to a much older, much more integrated model of education.
Like historically older.
Yeah, something closer to the Oxford tutorial system. You are placing the professors physically inside the stacks. So when a political science student wants to go to office hours to, argue about Locke or Hobbes, they aren't walking down some sterile, fluorescent-lit drywall corridor in an office park.
Right.
They're walking past thousands of bound volumes of documented human history just to get to the professor's door.
Wow. That proximity, that has to force a psychological shift for the student.
It absolutely does.
You're physically reminding this 19-year-old student that their political opinions are not occurring in a vacuum. They are just a continuation of a massive centuries-long conversation. And it's physically heavy, and it surrounds them on all sides.
It totally grounds the instruction in the archives. Think about it. When the Center for Constitutional Liberty operates out of the exact same building that houses the college's physical documents, the distance between theory and source material just drops to zero.
It's seamless.
You are engineering serendipity at that point. A professor can literally walk out of their office, pull a primary source document right off the shelf, and hand it to a student in the hallway. It eliminates all the friction of learning.
And speaking of eliminating the distance between the student and the primary source, we have to talk about the most startling feature of this new library.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Because it's not just books and offices. Visitors and students this fall will be able to tour a museum-quality replica of the Assembly Room at Independence Hall.
It's incredible.
Complete with an exhibition of early American documents. They have meticulously recreated the room from 1770s Philadelphia, where both the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution were debated and signed.
The engineering and architectural precision required to build a true museum-quality replica is just staggering.
Wait, I have to stop you there, though, because, playing devil's advocate, this sounds a little crazy to me.
Okay, why?
We're talking about a rigorous academic institution in Northeast Kansas, building a life-size replica of a room from Philadelphia. It sounds a little bit like they're funding a theme park attraction.
A theme park.
Yeah. Doesn't this risk becoming just a dusty diorama? Why spend all that capital to physically build a room when a student can just read about the Constitutional Convention in a book or, take a virtual 3D tour on their laptop?
Because that assumption completely ignores the neuroscience of how human beings encode memory.
Okay, unpack that for me.
We are not hard drives, right? We don't just download text files into our brains. We are deeply spatial, deeply embodied creatures. The hippocampus, which is the part of the brain responsible for converting short-term memory into long-term memory, is intrinsically tied to spatial navigation.
Like remembering where things are in a physical space?
Exactly. This is why memory champions use the mind palace technique. They attach abstract concepts to physical locations in an imaginary room because the brain holds on to physical space better than abstract words.
Oh, that makes sense.
So when a student reads about the summer of 1787 in a textbook, it feels abstract, it feels inevitable and distant. But when you walk into a replica that matches the exact physical constraints of the real assembly room, you absorb the history physiologically.
What do you mean by physical constraints, though?
Well, the original assembly room in Independence Hall is roughly 40 by 40 feet.
That's not very big.
It is incredibly small, especially when you realize that 55 men were packed into it during one of the hottest, most humid summers in Philadelphia history.
55 guys in a 40 by 40 room in July.
And because they were terrified of spies and eavesdroppers, George Washington actually ordered the windows to be nailed shut.
Wait, really? Nailed shut?
Nailed shut. So you have dozens of men wearing heavy wool coats, packed shoulder to shoulder in this sweltering, unventilated box, literally shouting at each other about the fate of a new nation.
So the physical architecture of the room actually forced the political pressure cooker.
Yes. If that room had been, a sprawling, air-conditioned modern auditorium, they might never have compromised.
They would have just walked away to their separate corners.
Exactly. The physical proximity, the discomfort, the claustrophobia, that is what forged the Great Compromise. And you cannot learn that by looking at a PDF of the Constitution on the screen.
Wow.
But when a student steps inside a replica, their brain processes that spatial reality. They see exactly how close Thomas Jefferson's desk was to John Adams's desk. They feel the actual scale of the room. It takes civic education completely out of the realm of pure, sterile theory and anchors it in physical reality.
That completely reframes the purpose of a replica for me. It isn't a museum piece at all. It's a pedagogical tool.
It's a laboratory, a literal laboratory for political science.
And, returning to your grain of wheat metaphor for a second, think about the labor required to build that room over the summer.
Oh.
The carpenters cutting the wainscoting, the painters trying to match the exact historical shade of the trim, the archivists sourcing the replica documents and securing them in display cases. All of that was grueling, hidden work.
Absolutely hidden.
The carpenters won't be there when a sophomore political science major suddenly understands the mechanics of the Federalist Papers because they are standing in that room. The fruit of that labor doesn't bloom until the student connects the physical space to their intellectual coursework years later.
That's the seed dying in the ground.
Great. And that idea, the idea of physical space dictating intellectual and social outcomes, that leads us directly to the next major project on the docket here.
The pass-through.
The pass-through. Because the college didn't just build a new library. They fundamentally altered the flow of one of the oldest buildings on campus.
St. Benedict Hall.
Yes, St. Benedict Hall.
Mm-hmm.
The administration has completed this major structural renovation called the St. Benedict Hall pass-through. So if you enter the main central doors of the building now, you no longer hit a wall or this weird maze of corridors.
Right, which is how it used to be.
Exactly. They have carved a direct line of sight so you can walk straight through the entire building, out the back doors, and emerge directly into the newly landscaped courtyard that faces the Moritz Library.
Now, taking a sledgehammer to the load-bearing interior of a historic masonry building just to create a hallway, that might sound like a simple aesthetic choice to some people.
Oh, I'm sure it was an absolute nightmare.
But from a structural and a sociological standpoint, it is a massive intervention. I always look at pedestrian architecture the exact same way I look at fluid dynamics.
Fluid dynamics, like water flowing in a pipe.
Exactly like water in a pipe. Think about Bernoulli's principle and how water flows through a closed system. If you have a pipe that hits a dead end or takes a really sharp, convoluted turn, what happens? You get an eddy.
The water just swirls around.
Right. It stops moving forward, spins back on itself, and it goes stagnant. Well, in an architectural system, a building with no central artery, where entrances and exits are sort of offset or lead to dead ends, it creates social stagnation.
That is so true.
People just put their heads down, they navigate the labyrinth to get to their specific classroom, and then they leave immediately because the space is fundamentally uncomfortable to linger in. There is no natural circulation.
You just perfectly described the feeling of walking through, like, a 1970s government building.
Yes.
You are instinctively just trying to escape it the whole time.
You want to get out. But by carving a massive central pass-through that aligns perfectly with the entrance to the new library courtyard, they have created a primary artery.
So they aren't just letting foot traffic move faster.
No, they are deliberately funneling the entire population of that building, all the students, the professors, the staff, through a single, well-lit, highly visible corridor.
They are forcing people to cross paths.
They are engineering collisions. In sociology, there is this whole concept regarding the strength of weak ties.
Weak ties.
Yeah, so your strong ties are your close friends, your roommates, your family. But a healthy community relies heavily on weak ties. That's the people you recognize but don't know intimately, right?
Like the guy who makes your coffee, or the student sitting 2 rows behind you.
Exactly. Or the professor you had last semester. When you funnel everyone through a central pass-through, you guarantee that a student is going to bump into a faculty member who just moved into the newly refurbished main floor offices.
Ah, right. Because the update specifically notes that several faculty members have moved their offices here from the Farrell Academic Center.
They did.
So a passing nod in the hallway turns into a brief halt, which turns into, a 5-minute conversation about a thesis paper.
And that 5-minute conversation could completely alter the trajectory of that student's entire semester.
And the college is practically admitting this strategy in the update. They note that they have refurbished that main floor with new flooring, fresh paint, and much larger, updated bathrooms.
Bathrooms are key.
Right, because everyone has to use them. They are intentionally stacking the area around this new pass-through with faculty and amenities. They are placing the teachers right on the banks of the river, so to speak.
It is brilliant urban planning on a micro scale. You make the space beautiful with new floors, you make it necessary by putting the bathrooms there,
Yeah.
and you make it a thoroughfare. You create an environment where community is literally the path of least resistance.
Which brings up a really fascinating biological reality about this kind of intense academic community, because that level of intellectual rigor, studying primary documents, debating in faculty offices, just navigating the social dynamics of the pass-through, that creates a massive cognitive drain.
Oh, you were exhausted by the end of the day.
Right. After 3 hours of reading constitutional law in the Moritz archives, a student's brain is totally depleted. And that biological deficit dictates the very next architectural change the college made, which is the absolute overhaul of the campus social spaces.
Yes, because you cannot maintain a high-functioning intellectual environment without also building the infrastructure for psychological recovery.
Exactly. So let's look at the coffee situation. The original Holy Grounds coffee shop, which has been a staple there for years, has been relocated. It is now on the ground floor of the new Moritz Library, taking up a much larger footprint. It's got booths, counters, and it's designed to hold students throughout the entire day.
Which is great.
But the space where Holy Grounds used to be, over in the Haverty Center, has been completely reimagined.
This is the part I love.
It is now called Mick's Place, named for Michael Mick Haverty, who funded the original renovations years ago. Now, by day, Mick's Place will serve smoothies and acai bowls, but at night, the update proudly announces it transforms into a pub-style venue.
A proper pub.
Yeah. They will be serving mocktails, a curated selection of beers, wines, and hard seltzers, along with appetizers.
I think this is perhaps the most sophisticated, historically grounded decision in the entire summer update. The college is formally endorsing and facilitating the third place.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here again, because to a lot of parents dropping off their kids, this is going to sound deeply contradictory.
How so?
We are talking about an institution dedicated to classical, rigorous truth-seeking, right? Faith and reason. Why is a Catholic college using donor funds to build a pub on campus? Aren't these students supposed to be studying for midterms? It sounds to an outsider like the administration is actively funding a distraction.
I completely disagree with that premise. Viewing a pub purely as a distraction from education is a very modern, very industrialized, and frankly puritanical way of looking at how human beings actually learn.
Defend that. Why is a pub educational?
It goes back to the sociologist Ray Oldenburg. He coined this concept of the third place. Oldenburg argued that for a civilization to be healthy, individuals need 3 distinct types of places.
Okay.
Your first place is the home. For a college student, that's their dorm room. It's private, it's restful, it's where you sleep.
Right.
Your second place is the workplace.
Mhm.
So the lecture hall, or that quiet, sterile desk in the library, it is hierarchical, it's stressful, and it's highly goal-oriented.
The place where you have to perform.
Exactly. But society collapses if you only have those 2 spheres. You desperately need the third place. And the third place is a neutral, highly accessible, welcoming environment where people gather primarily for the joy of conversation and fellowship.
Like the Parisian cafe.
Or the German beer garden. Or the English public house. The pub, historically, was not a place you went just to get intoxicated. It was a public house. It was literally the living room of the town.
Oh, like the Eagle and Child in Oxford, where Tolkien and C.S. Lewis met to read the drafts of The Lord of the Rings.
Precisely. They didn't do that in a lecture hall. They didn't do it in a dorm room. They did it over pints in a pub.
That's a great point.
The highest levels of intellectual synthesis happen in the third place. When a student leaves the library at 9:00 p.m., their brain is just full of raw data. They need a place to process it.
You talk it out.
Right. And if the college does not build a warm, hospitable third place on campus, the students don't just magically go back to their dorms to quietly read more books.
No, they don't.
The community shatters. They leave campus. They scatter to random bars in town. Or, even worse, they isolate in their rooms and just succumb to the loneliness epidemic that is currently ravaging Gen Z.
Wow. So by building mixed place and specifically offering things like mocktails, beer, and shared appetizers, the college is capturing that post-study energy and keeping it safely within the ecosystem of the campus.
It is an act of profound hospitality. They're essentially saying, we know you are tired, we know you need fellowship, do it here in a space that honors your dignity, rather than wandering off to find a lesser version of community somewhere else.
And the transition from the daytime smoothie to the evening pub, it really reflects the natural circadian rhythm of a student's life.
It really does.
Uh-huh.
Caffeine and fruit for the rigorous daytime output, and then shared food in a much slower pace for the evening synthesis.
And there is a beautiful, quiet poetry to the naming of the space, too. Naming it after McCafferty is a perfect testament to that grain of wheat principle we talked about.
Yeah, full circle.
Because years ago, he made a quiet donation to renovate a space. He planted a seed of generosity. And the original iteration of that space served its purpose, and now it is evolving. It's dying to its old form as a coffee shop and being reborn as a pub to serve a completely new generation of students.
The fruit of his original hidden work is still ripening.
It is, providing a place of rest for young people he will probably never even meet.
That is the ultimate goal of stewardship, right? You maintain the soil so that the next crop can grow.
Exactly.
And actually, that concept of stewardship transitions us into a totally different, vastly more technical kind of hidden work.
Ah, the infrastructure.
Because you can build the most beautiful replica libraries, the warmest campus pubs in the world, but if the baseline physiological need for safety is not met, the entire intellectual project just collapses.
Right. We have to talk about the perimeter. The final pages of this campus update deal entirely with infrastructure and security. And this is the kind of grueling, uncelebrated labor that is entirely invisible unless it fails.
Absolutely invisible.
So, the update states they have installed comprehensive 360-degree LED lighting across the exterior of the campus. They have added nearly 100 outside security cameras. They've doubled the security staff to allow for constant, active patrols and escorts. And they have massively expanded the electronic campus access control system, which means more exterior doors are locked and operated by swipe cards.
From an engineering perspective, retrofitting a historic, century-old campus with modern security infrastructure is an absolute nightmare.
Really? What? Isn't it just, screwing in brighter light bulbs and putting up some cameras?
Oh, not at all. Let's just look at the lighting for a second. The update specifically mentions 360-degree LED lighting. Historically, campuses use high-pressure sodium lamps. Those are the ones that cast that really harsh dystopian orange glow.
Oh, yeah, like an old parking lot.
Right. And they're terrible for security because they have a very low color rendering index, or CRI.
The CRI.
Yeah. Under an orange sodium lamp, a dark blue jacket looks black. A green car looks gray. You literally cannot identify details.
Which renders security cameras almost useless because everything is just orange and black.
Exactly. When you upgrade to modern 360-degree LEDs, you are moving to a light source with a high CRI, usually around 4,000 to 5,000 Kelvin. It mimics actual daylight. So suddenly, colors are true, facial features are distinct, and the light throw is perfectly even.
But installing those is complicated.
Highly complicated. Electrical engineers have to conduct massive photometric studies. They have to map out the entire campus on a digital grid and calculate the lumen decay from every single pole to ensure that the cones of light perfectly overlap.
Why do they have to overlap perfectly?
Because if they don't overlap, you create severe shadow zones. And that actually decreases safety, because the human eye can't adjust fast enough when you move from a brightly lit LED path into a patch of total darkness.
Wow. And they have to do all of that while pulling new high-voltage wire through underground conduits that were probably laid during, the Eisenhower administration.
Oh, yeah. And trenching around century-old oak trees without destroying the root systems. It is brutal, invisible work.
And then you add the electronic access control systems on top of that.
Right. You are taking heavy wooden doors set into masonry and plaster from the 1920s, and you are trying to seamlessly hollow out the frames to install electronic strikes, magnetic locks, and RFID readers. And all of that has to be wired back to a central server that allows security to lock down the entire grid in milliseconds.
Doing that without destroying the historic aesthetic of the campus, that requires masterful craftsmanship.
Unbelievable craftsmanship.
Right.
When a student swipes their card at midnight and hears that quiet mechanical click, they have no idea that 3 electricians spent a week in July sweating in a crawl space to make that happen.
That is the very definition of the grain of wheat falling into the earth. But, this massive security upgrade, the cameras, the swipe cards, the double patrols, it raises a very serious philosophical tension for me.
The open campus versus the fortress.
Yes. A college is supposed to be an open community. It is a place of free inquiry, trust, and liberty. Doesn't blanketing a campus in 100 cameras and electronic locks inevitably change the culture? Doesn't it turn a welcoming home into a fortress?
It's the constant paradox of civil society, right?
Yeah.
How do you maintain liberty while ensuring security? But if you look closely at the college's update, they thread this needle perfectly. There is a bolded, highly intentional note in the security section.
I saw that.
It explicitly states there are no cameras inside the buildings.
None at all. They're drawing a very hard line at the doorway.
It's the philosophy of the castle wall. There is an old, profound truth in urban planning. Strong fences make safe playgrounds. The purpose of securing the exterior, the bright LEDs, the perimeter cameras, the heavy electronic locks, is not to police the students. It is to protect the perimeter so that the interior can remain radically free.
You secure the border so you don't have to secure the living room.
Precisely. If you know that the outside of the building is being watched and guarded by a doubled security force, you can let your guard down on the inside. You don't need a camera in the stacks of the Moritz Library. You don't need a camera in the pass-through of St. Benedict Hall or hanging over the booths in Mix Place.
Right.
By fiercely protecting the edges of the campus, the administration is preserving the peace, the vulnerability, and the intellectual liberty happening on the inside.
It's basically applying Maslow's hierarchy of needs to an academic community.
Exactly.
You cannot have self-actualization. You cannot have high-level debates about constitutional law or philosophy if your baseline physiological need for safety isn't met. A student walking back from the library at midnight shouldn't have to devote a single ounce of cognitive bandwidth to worrying about their physical safety.
The administration is stewarding the physical environment so that the faculty can steward the students' minds.
And that really brings us full circle to the reality of this summer. None of these individual updates, the replica of Independence Hall, the fluid dynamics of a new hallway, the sociology of a campus pub, or the photometrics of LED lighting, none of these are the education itself.
They are just the environment. They are the soil.
But without the soil, the seed dies alone. The faculty packing boxes of books, the engineers trenching the lighting conduit, the carpenters building the assembly room, all of that is hidden, sacrificial labor.
They are acting as the grain of wheat.
Yes. They are dying to their own summer, expending their energy in the quiet heat of August, so that in a few weeks, 2,000 students can arrive and immediately begin to flourish. Those students will reap a harvest from soil they did not till.
Which is the story of every healthy generation.
It really is. We inherit libraries we did not build, we walk safely under lights we did not wire, and we enjoy the warmth of communities funded by people who came along before us. Our only job is to maintain those structures, improve them where we can, and willingly plant new seeds for the next generation to harvest.
It's a beautiful cycle.
Well, as you finish your coffee this morning and prepare to step out the door into your own Monday, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We have spent the last hour dissecting the unseen architectural and structural work happening on a college campus. But look around your own life, your own neighborhood, your workplace, or your family today. The mechanics are exactly the same. What is the hidden work happening right now in your own sphere? What unglamorous, uncelebrated labor are you engaging in today? Fixing a door, preparing a lesson, listening to a friend that feels like burying a seed in the dark? Are you willing to do the quiet work that you may never see the fruit of? Are you willing to be the grain of wheat?
Is the only way a community survives.
It truly is. Before we let you go, a quick look at the evening schedule. Tonight on Chesterton Radio, The Brass Farthing, a forgotten BBC Sunday play by Rupert Croft Cook. You won't want to miss the broadcast of that audio drama. We invite you to visit the live stream throughout the day and check out the Substack newsletter for more stories, essays, and updates. Thank you for inviting us to your table this morning. From all of us at the Little Station on Commercial Street, we wish you a wonderful start to your week. Until next time, keep the old map.